Okay, I don't have a lot of content for this video. It's just going to be a short one on installing the cold end of the Bowden extruder, which we assembled in the last video. But I did want to start off with just a real quick tip on using the machine. And I'll try to throw some of those, because I have another one of these already built. I'll try to throw in some quick tips about using the machine in the rest of each of these videos. So just real quickly, I'm going to go over to the other machine and talk about how to take care of the print bed. Okay, this is the first machine, which I bought back in March. Built it over spring vacation. It really only took me about 2 days. It was about 14 hours of steady work to get it built and put together and ready to go. And I had it actually in operation about 3 days after the package arrived. It's got at this point, about 400 hours of use on it. And if you look down here at the print bed, you can see that there are some places where, for one error or another, the print head has come down on the print bed, and it's left some scars and scratches here. Those really aren't that big a deal, although they do result in the bottom surface of whatever you're printing ending up just a little bit rough. But one problem that I run into with this is that PLA tends to stick to this plastic surface, and in real thin layers it doesn't come off very easily. And what that means is that when you change colors, the next time you print something, it lays down over scraps of PLA that were left behind from the previous print, and that can kind of make it ugly. It depends on what you're making, and maybe you don't care, but if you do care, one of the things that I have found useful to do with this is the print bed actually will come off the machine, and I can take this and I will sand it, and I've been using 120 grit sandpaper. And that was the first thing I did, but I found that to be just a little bit awkward to do, and I came up with a better solution. I have a cabinet scraper here. Cabinet scraper is just a piece of spring steel that's been flat filed on the edge and then burnished to create kind of a hook edge on one edge. And by using the card scraper, I can clean off any residue of PLA that's left on the bed here, and you can see that kind of yellow dust on there. So every time I change colors on the machine, I'll run the card scraper across the plastic bed. This is polyetheramide. Anyway, it's called PEI is the plastic that this is used. This is what came with the printer. You can also buy this materials called Build Tack. So if this ever does wear out or becomes unusable, you can replace it. I don't know that the manufacturer is actually selling the exact size for the Linear Plus machine, but you can buy this and then you can cut it to shape to fit on the glass plate. It does just glue or stick down, it self-stick. It sticks down to the glass plate, and when it's worn off, you can peel it. But it does get beat up, and so you do want to refresh this surface occasionally. So by hitting it with a card scraper, I get a brand new surface for the next color. Okay, so installing an extruder is easy enough to do. I'm using some M4 by 8mm bolts and some M4. I'm using the insertion nuts that I bought extra. I've talked about those in the other videos. And just put those on, and then you just turn my hand over here. Just put it right into the extrusion slot, and then take your Allen wrench and just tighten that up. And you want it about halfway up and down the frame. I just kind of arbitrarily decided that it was going to be 12 inches from the work surface, so just made it a little too tight. This nut up here. Slide this down until the housing is 12 inches. Roughly here. Again, this position is not critical. It just has to be so that you want it up high enough so that the spool of PLA filament will fit underneath here. You don't want it so high. You want there's a tube that's going to come over here, and it's going to go back to the extruder. So you don't want it so high that tube can't reach, but you don't want it so low that that tube has to reach too far either. So I'll put that tube on next. Okay, so I'll put this quick connect pneumatic fitting back on the cold end of the extruder. Again, it doesn't have to be down super tight. It's just snug it up. But if you wanted to put a crescent wrench on there and tighten it down, that wouldn't hurt anything. And then the feed tube, Bowden tube, goes on here. I'm going to unclip. Okay, so the Bowden tube is actually a piece of Teflon tubing. I'm pretty sure it's Teflon. Anyway, it needs to be exposed to high heat at one end, and it just fits into this press fitting right here, and this just pushes down and then it clips in. So this pressure fitting kind of holds it in place. Just a quick connect fitting. And then you're going to run the tube around. You want to run it behind all of the control arms, and then it's just going to go right into the top of the hot end of the extruder. And what this does on an original type of machine, rep wrap machine, any Cartesian machine, what happens is that this extruder motor is actually mounted to the print head, which this is pretty beefy. If you look at this motor, this is a NEMA 17, National Electric Manufacturers Association or something, NEMA 17 frame motor, but you'll notice that it's quite a bit bigger than the NEMA 17 frame stepper motors that move the print head up and down. And that's because this has to actually force the PLA filament up through the tube and then force it through the extruder tip. And it does take quite a bit of pressure to do that. So it does take a fairly beefy motor to push it through there. So you don't want this mass actually on the print head. The advantage of a Delta machine is that you've taken this mass of the cold end and you've removed it from the print head, and that results in a print head that has a lot less mass. And because it has less mass, it can move more quickly. It doesn't have as much inertia, so they can move the print head very, very quickly, and it's also more precise that way. So that's the installation that completes the whole extruder assembly. And that pretty much completes the mechanical assembly of this machine. The next thing we have to do is install all the electronics. So we'll install the motherboard and we'll start wiring it up in the next video. Hey, thanks for watching these videos. Appreciate people who've made comments, and I'm actually back on track now. I've got the last video is uploading right now. That's video 12, I think, and so this will be video 13 on this. Hopefully it's lucky 13, but I'm finding that it takes about 5 hours to upload a 10 to 15 minute video. I'm trying to set these to upload at night, but we live kind of out in the country. We live in a small town, or on the very edge of a small town. We have very slow internet here, and I find that uploads just take hours. Alright, thanks for watching.